Hey, Customize Your Life world. Great to be back with you. I am super excited today. We have RD Saunders. Just to give you a little bit of a background on him. In 2017, he became the Director of Advancement of Equip and the John Maxwell Leadership Foundation. Chief Speaker for Leading with 2020 Vision. Has an amazing board of directors. I'll let him talk about that a little bit. But his organization has, correct me if I'm wrong, RD, I believe it's over 6 million people that you guys have trained in leadership and whatnot. Is that accurate?
It's actually not accurate anymore, Tony. It's now over 7 million that we've been able to train over the last since about 9/11. In fact, crises like we're currently in have been kind of launch points for us. So after the 9/11 crisis, John got a vision, Dr. John C. Maxwell got a vision that our organization would raise up 1 million leaders. So he had this million leaders mandate that he wanted to have. And it ended up being, by the time we got finished, about 6 million. And so now that figure has swollen to 7 million, and we're excited about where it's going to go because we believe it's going to be multiple, if not hundreds of millions before we wrap up. So very exciting days for us.
That's unbelievable. I mean, you guys really, that's what it's really all about. It's creating duplication,
yes, sir.
Discipleship, why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because, that's the toughest part for, I think, any leader is like, yeah, you can lead a group of people, but then reproducing that, why don't you talk about that for a few minutes? Because that's the part that I've struggled with for sure on our journey with our business.
Well, I will say this, that duplication is not as difficult as one might think. Positive duplication is much more difficult. No matter what happens, there is going to be duplication because people do what people see. John Maxwell says it's the #1 motivational principle he's ever seen. So the challenges sometimes are that we are doing maybe some things that we shouldn't be doing or not enough of what we should be doing. And unfortunately, that gets duplicated. That's why it is absolutely essential that every leader realizes that people will never do what we say, but they will do what we do. And if what we're doing is good, if they're able to see it and be exposed to it, they're going to do it too. And so I think the most important thing to remember when it comes to duplication, and I realize that in your business, in your team's work, that the finding a system that you can, a personal system, not necessarily a system in your business, but a personal system that you can do that will create duplication with your team, it is really, really challenging. But understand this, you can teach it all day long. If you do not model it, it will not happen. So the things you want, if you want your team to bleed, you need to hemorrhage. And you need to model the way. A leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And if a leader, first of all, doesn't know the way, no one's going to follow him because you got to know something. If you're not willing to go the way, then people feel like that there's an integrity issue, that you don't really believe it, that you're just mouthing the words because, I don't know, someone's got something on you and you've got no choice, I guess. But so you got to go the way. You got to do it yourself. And then you've got to show the way. And this can be a piece that may be missing. I think sometimes the most important skills in the kind of work your team does, Tony, those who do it well are not adequately showing their people how to do it or involving them with them when they do it. The very best qualities that we want our teams to have cannot be taught. They can only be experienced by close personal contact. I think it was Oscar Wilde that said that it is important to know that the most important things cannot be taught. You cannot teach morals. You cannot teach attitude. You cannot teach values. You cannot teach the actions like hard work and other things like that. You can't teach it. You have to do it. You have to show it. And then other people will do it when you do it. So you got to know the way, go the way, and show the way. People do what people see. do those things that are most important to be duplicated, and your people will do them. If you don't, they'll duplicate that too.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely can see that big time. I mean, and the other thing is until you actually live it out, I mean, gosh, the biggest changes in my life and Francis's life and our relationship we've come out on the other side. The struggle victory has been because we've actually gone through it. And there's such a difference when you actually experience it and you can speak from that experience as opposed to just reading something out of a book. And I think that's what a lot of people do is they'll read leadership books, but they're not actually living it out, and John's organization, and what you guys do, I mean, 6 million people, even for myself, that's such a huge, 7 million people now, that's such a massive number, but that's where we want to take our organization. I think anybody that runs an organization or a company wants to get their company as big as possible. What does that look like, and how do you break that down into kind of bite-sized chunks? And then how do you get people also to buy into that vision? Like, what was the vision? You touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Tony, the thing to remember is we did not go out and find 6 million people or 7 million people and teach them leadership. We probably found, 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. And we taught them. And we made sure they were well equipped, and we empowered them, and we gifted them. 1,000 might even be bigger than the number. But I'm going to say we found, and so we had a partnership of two different kinds of leader. One kind of leader was a leader in a country that had influence in the country that could rally people together. So they had the ability to draw people together. They had influence among individuals. And then we had a second group of people, and those people were people who came and taught, and they were very capable as teachers. But they also did one other thing. They funded the teaching. So they used their influence in the business world, their influence in the church world, to raise $12,000 to fund that conference of, 200 to 500, let's say, people in a room. And we would bring them in twice a year for 3 years. And they would train the people gathered together from a country, and they would challenge those people to go out and train 10 others. Wow. And that's really how it happened. So we didn't get 6 million leaders. We got 1,000 leaders who impacted, tens of thousands of others, who impacted thousands of others. And by the time it was all said and done, there were 6 or 7 million people who had been influenced. We've taken a different approach now because we work in a very unique way. That was kind of our work in the faith-based community. But now we're working with governments, businesses, what we call the 8 streams of influence. And so that's government, business, education, healthcare, media, arts and entertainment, sports, and faith. So I won't go through all of them again, but those 8 streams, we find key leaders in each of those 8 streams of influence. And we find out, don't you want to make an impact in your country, community, city, wherever they may be a person of influence? Yes, they do. Those people form what we call a transformative cabinet. We bring them together, train them, develop them, empower them, and we make them real winners. And they already are, but with what we bring to them, with John Maxwell's personal touch in their life, it really up-levels them, and they really become influencers. And through that team of leaders, we're able to bring influence into an entire country or community. And as a result, that is really accelerating our work, because what we did before was kind of grassroots, and not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. But what we do now is we find the best that we can. And because influence is top down, and you can do a lot bottom up, but usually you have to just about start a revolution to make an impact bottom up. But if you can start top down and find the very best of the best in a country and a community in all 8 streams, well, that's, as Archimedes said, that's a lever big enough to move the world. Huh. Give me a lever big enough and a place on which to stand, and I shall move the world, Archimedes said. And we believe that that getting the biggest leaders in a country and giving them leadership-based or values-based leadership training is a lever that moves the world. And so now what we're seeing is not only are we bringing leadership training into these countries, but when we get these people together, we're finding out what are the 4, 5, 6 biggest problems their country has. And we are uniting with them to not only infuse leadership and values into their country or community, but we're also saying, look, let's find a way that we can solve these problems you've got. Let's find a way to fix like third grade illiteracy, which has been proven to be a predictor of delinquency down the road. So let's solve that problem, or let's fight this issue with poverty, or let's work on your GDP. And so big things are happening because we're adding value to their life at such a level that we're now seeing entire communities transformed. And sorry, I live on the train tracks, so got a train going by.
Oh, good. That's what makes these talks so perfect. I mean, they're real. We're in our home, so it's awesome.
The dogs to start barking. I may have gotten a little off track there going into all that we do, but I wanted to tell you that the benefit of adding value to people, of blessing their life, of up-leveling their life, all kinds of other things can happen. And I know that's how you and Francis look at your team, and I believe your team, how they're looking at those on their team is, how can I bless your life? And that's exactly why your team is so successful, Tony.
Yeah, and you know, it's everything for us is we start with a foundation of, you know, the golden rule, doing to others as you'd have them doing to yourself. And when you look at, I mean, right now what's going on with coronavirus, you know, the world has obviously been turned upside down, economies, and you know, what's really unfortunate is when you see people that are trying to hurt people, you know, take advantage of people, you know, different, you know, scams that are going on, you know, as people are trying to get loans and just crazy stuff going on. And I always say this to our people. I go, if people just operated from this one basic point, and that's why it is the golden rule, is because if you truly do unto others as you'd have them do unto you in every decision that you make in your life, we'd live in a totally different world.
Yes.
So getting people to understand that, I love your point that you're working with the biggest, most influential leaders and you're working top down, you know, that makes so much sense. And like, so like when they're buying into what you're talking about, because you do not get to 7 million people if people are not buying in and understanding the bigger cause. You know, like what are some of those points? What are some of those values? Like, how do you start to talk about that from the beginning with these people that are going, you know, to these conferences and then obviously choosing to bring on 10 more people themselves?
Well, we do have the benefit of having the name and heritage of John C. Maxwell in our world. And whenever you bring the world's leading exponent on leadership into your country, especially if you're a small country like where we work in Guatemala or Costa Rica or wherever it may be, that certainly carries a lot of weight. We have major connections in the country of Guatemala, for example, with the people in leadership all across the board there. So places like that, we're able to kind of carry a big stick when it comes to John. But I think the reason, though, because that gets you in, that doesn't keep you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
you
opens
have to produce results. Like if these people aren't getting value out of what you're doing, you know, it doesn't matter. That's
exactly right. And so Guatemala, we've been there for 5 years now, and they continue to evolve and grow. And right now in Guatemala alone, we have about 1.2 million people that we've been able to train, take through our personal growth and leadership. And it's added incredible value to their lives. For instance, there's a lady there, her name is Nydia Alarcon, and Nydia is just an average lady, nothing exceptional necessarily about her, or nothing that would strike you as exceptional about her. She works for an education company that produces school books. And so we have a huge impact with the educational system there. So Nydia was being trained along with several others in her office. And it had a great impact on her life. But then life happens, and her son, because of some kind of drug issue, gets sent to prison. And that breaks her heart. But she said the content that she had studied, the personal growth content, just so blessed her life that she was able to handle that with grace. But then she got an idea, and that idea was, what would happen if I took this values-based curriculum, leadership stuff, probably things, Tony, that you and Francis teach your team, and that in your organization that you know, the Brits have modeled and taught you guys, and
Yep.
and not everyone has the benefit of that, and it's been a blessing in your life and that of your team. Massive. Well, she had the benefit of that because of our curriculum. She goes to the warden of the prison and says, I would like to teach this curriculum to the inmates. Well, this is the hellhole of Guatemala, the worst prison they've got.
Yeah.
He's like, go ahead if you want to. He doesn't give her any hope, really, just basically says, okay, go away. Well, she goes and she starts teaching those guys. And it completely revolutionizes that prison. All of the, what you might call key performance indicators, start going up that demonstrate that these guys are changing. All the bad KPIs, fights, drug abuse, whatever it might be, damaging the surroundings, all of that starts going down. Then the warden's, he's paying attention now. So the inmates go to the warden and say, look, if you can get the paint and the stuff, we're going to redo the prison for you. We're going to paint over all the graffiti and we're going to make the prison look nice. And he's like, sure, I can do that. So he goes and gets the stuff. They totally remodel the prison. Well, then these guys start saying, we've got time in our hands. And so they start going to college, or if they hadn't finished high school, they start going to high school. And all of a sudden, these guys start graduating so that when they get out of prison, they're going to be able to go find a job, and it's totally changed their life. Well, now the other prison guys are like, hey, is there any way that we could have that inmate, the son of Nydia Alarcon, transferred to our prison? So it's just amazing what happens when you change people's lives. And that's the thing that I think you and Francis, and by the way, those of you who are on this team, you could not be more blessed than to be with people like Tony and Francis. I mean, honestly, every business, especially the kind of business you're in, it's about location, location, location. Yep. I could not be in a better spot because I know your business quite well. I know that world. I understand network marketing. I have many thousands, and I mean literally thousands of friends who do what you do. And so I understand it well. And you guys are so blessed to be with Tony and Francis. And I probably don't need to tell you that, but just in case.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. I deeply appreciate it, and our team certainly will. And, we that's our whole goal, is to give them the best content, the best leadership, and back to our point what we were talking about before, one of the big things that a lot of the people say on our team is about us is that they've seen us change and grow and develop, and it's because of guys like you, John Maxwell, obviously, our organization leaders from the Brits to just a whole bunch of people, and my parents are involved in the business, and it changed our whole life. And that's why we have such a passion. A lot of people will hear us say like, oh, it's not about the money. And it really isn't. It's really about the impact that you're making in people's lives. And I think one of the people that counsel us and coach us, he says like his goal is to help people in his life go further than he could have ever gone. And I was like, wow, that is such a cool goal. Because if you help hundreds, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people go further than you've ever gone, and you've gone a long way, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And it really is about that. And especially, there's a lot of fear in the world. And as a leader, with everything going on with coronavirus, and, we have our own perspective on it, and we're very positive, and we like situations like that. We find how to make it a positive. It's not that the situation is positive, but we are going to get a positive. We are going to turn this into a positive in multiple ways. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit? I mean, you did with the story of Nydia, but I think a lot of people, when they're in the midst of this challenge or any challenge, they don't ever see a way out. And their perspective is limited based upon whatever they're going through. But the biggest blessings in my life have been because of the challenges that I've gone through and what I've learned through those. So I don't know if you want to talk about that for a little bit. Sorry, it's freezing up a little bit. Can you hear me?
I didn't know if it was me. Yeah, I got you good, man. No problem on my end.
Okay, good.
So if anyone missed it, as I understood it, Tony was talking about, leading in times of crisis and how leaders look at this time. And, I think the most important first step is to not stare so closely at the door that is closed that you miss the door that has now opened. And so in my mind, a leader, if anything, a leader is like, you know what, we've got a crisis. Look at this opportunity. It reminds me of the story of the two salesmen who went to Africa many years ago. And the one salesman goes, guys, just send the shoes back. No one here wears shoes. And the other guy said, send me every shoe you've got. No one here wears shoes. And it's just a matter of perspective. It's a matter of how you view it. One guy saw no opportunity and the other guy saw nothing but opportunity. And so I think the people who see opportunities, who are, maybe there isn't the opportunity that you would like, but if there is an opportunity, take that opportunity, take the one right in front of you and go with that as hard and as fast as you can. And then maybe the opportunity you realize preparing for your opportunities beats the daylight out of waiting for them. And I completely believe that. And so many people are not preparing. So I, as an example, one thing I've done is, and I really don't have more time, but maybe I had the illusion of time enough so that I could delude myself into believing that this is a good time for me to pursue a master's degree. And so when this crisis began, I went ahead and agreed to start a master's degree. And I've been pursuing that degree. And so this was an opportunity for me to do that. My travel was totally gone, so I wasn't going to be traveling. So that made it easier to be able to go into my office and work each night. And so that was an opportunity for me. There's opportunities, and unfortunately, it's amazing how crisis reveals the kind of leaders who are opportunistic and those who just think they are. John has taught extensively, and by the way, if you went to John's Facebook page, there's links to all of his old talks, so just go to John on Facebook and you can listen. If you're kind of looking for something to give you some content and some energy and some direction, John's got great stuff on dealing specifically with leadership in crisis. He puts it out new every Monday called Leadership When It Matters Most.
Yep.
And so I'm not trying to promote that because there's nothing from it, but I think it would be very, very beneficial, especially if you're like, gosh, I just don't know what to do right now. Well, again, and this is something to have upline discussions with. Talk to your upline about, okay, this is the opportunity I think I have with our business. Well, I think that's a great conversation to have. Should I pursue this? Should I go in this direction? And connect and get that kind of counseling from your upline. And it's amazing what you'll learn when you actually ask people for advice.
Yeah.
So there are opportunities here. They may not be the ones you want, but whatever opportunity you've got, grab it. And that's how you get the better one. You don't get it by waiting around and hoping.
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of people, they like when we interview people, take people through our educational process to see if they'd be a good fit for, what we do. And they get started and we try to frame out for them, like, look, you're going to have challenges. You're going to go through crap. Like, that's just part of being in business, not whether you're in a small business, low cost business, network marketing type business, or a big business. It's all the same. Yeah. Business is business. Some cost more than others, obviously, but you're going to have challenges. And I think a lot of people that have never owned a business and don't even really understand what success looks like, they go, okay, you're giving me a path, which we are, all right, but we can't tell them what the stumbling blocks are going to be for them because we're not them.
Yeah.
They may struggle with learning the information, learning the skill set. They may have personal struggles in their life, all these things. And what we try to explain to people is like, look, it's not a matter of like, because what they do is they go, well, I'm having challenges, so I'm not supposed to do this.
Yeah.
This isn't for me because it shouldn't be this hard. And it's actually quite the opposite, at least from what I've learned, is like, no, man, the hard things in life, first of all, most of the hard things in life were self-inflicted. My relationship challenges were self-inflicted. My financial challenges were self-inflicted. Other than health challenges, and even health challenges could be self-inflicted in a lot of cases.
Sure.
So it's trying to get people to understand, like, look, no, the challenges are actually necessary for you to get to that point where you need to be. I mean, why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because a lot of people don't get that. Like, we try to explain it to them, and we're like, this is how it's going to be, and you need to fight through that.
Yeah, there's a line of poetry that years ago I heard John use, and I shared it with him the other day, and he said, man, I'd forgotten about that one. Thank you for reminding me. But it's simple. It goes, there are two kinds of people on earth I've seen, just two kinds of people on earth I mean. Not the good and the bad, for 'tis well understood, the good are half bad and the bad are half good. No, the two kinds of people on earth I've seen are those who lift and those who lean. And it's really the truth. There's nothing on earth worth having that doesn't require lifting. There's no such thing as accidental success. There's no such thing as instantaneous success. Even if someone wins the lottery, that's not really success.
No.
Because the truth of the matter is, I've read some studies about lottery winners. Most of them are more broke than before they bought their lottery ticket in 2 years. Wow. Many of them die of heart attacks because they're so anxious that someone's going to steal their money, or they're constantly bothered by people wanting money. And what has happened is this: they got wealthy before they had the character to manage it. And let me tell you something. General Schwarzkopf said so well. To be a great general, you need two things. You need character and you need great strategy. But if you're going to do without one of them, do without strategy. And look, when Stormin Norman says it, I believe it. And I'm telling you right now, so many people don't understand that the process that hurts is the process that makes them strong. It reminds me of the illustration of the butterfly in the cocoon, and the little boy comes by and he sees the butterfly trying to get out. And so he decides that he's going to make it a little bit easier and snip the opening a little bit bigger with a pair of scissors. And he does so, and this ugly, hideous, half-developed larva, caterpillar, butterfly mix falls onto the ground and dies. And what he later found out, that it is the fight to get out of that cocoon that builds the muscles so the butterfly can fly, and forces the fluids within the butterfly or within the caterpillar to move in such a way that it causes wings to grow and it is the fight to get out of the cocoon that you're in that you desperately need to be the butterfly you want to be. Yeah. And there are no shortcuts. I mean, it'd be great if there were, but the fact is there can't be a shortcut, because it's the thing that you do that makes you what you want to be. So it's like if you're going to get to Europe, you're going to have to go across the Atlantic. I mean, it's just the way you go, unless you want to take a longer, harder way. But if you want to go the easy way, you go across the Atlantic. And it's funny how so many people are trying to find another way to Europe. But if you're here in the United States of America, there's only one way. Yeah. And friends, be grateful that it's hard. Be glad that it's hard, because hard is exactly what we need to be what we want to be. Because otherwise, we stand the risk of falling out undeveloped, half-made, not completely finished, and not able to enjoy a life that we might like to have. Yep. And I would just add to that and say, maybe you would like to have what the Brits have, those that are listening. Maybe you'd like to have what the Pappalardos have. Maybe you'd like to have what the Maxwells have. Well, are you willing to do what they've done to get it? Are you willing to give up what they've given up? Are you willing to sacrifice? And Tony hasn't told me to share all this. This is just the truth that I would share with anyone. You have to do what great people do to be a great person. There is no add water and stir way to do it. And if there is, it probably wouldn't work anyway.
Because well, that's the thing is everyone, like, again, what we see is people will see, nobody's ever a finished product. I get that, but they'll see somebody that's been shaped and molded and developed for a decade, 2 decades. And they'll look at the results that they've created and they go, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then we go, okay, great. Yeah, you can have that, but here's what this decade has looked like for us. And me explaining it to you is probably only giving you about 5% as to what it was like. Like, until you actually go through it yourself, you're not gonna really know what that road looks like. I mean, it's like explaining to somebody, hey, I became Miss America, Mr. Olympia, whatever. I worked out every day, 7 days a week. I ate bark, so I haven't had a cookie in 10 years, all these different things. And yeah, that sounds terrible, but when you're actually doing it, then you see how tough it is.
Yeah.
And, we understand what it looks like in sports. We understand what it looks like in physical type activities. We understand that more. We understand that, oh man, if I don't work out and really stretch my muscles and tear my muscles, and if I'm not sore the next day, I didn't really work out.
You're right.
But when it comes to your mind and developing leadership and building a business, we really fight against that. We think that it should be easy.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Tony, I pulled up a quote here that is an absolute favorite of mine. It was written by a guy named James Allen. And James Allen said, men and women are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. And so we get circumstance focused and circumstance driven rather than personal growth focused and personal growth driven. And trust me, there is no such thing as personal growth that's ever wasted. It's never an investment that you waste. Developing others, pouring into others is never a wasted investment. In fact, John just wrote a book that it's the best investment we could ever make. And so what I want to challenge your audience to, and again, Tony, this is nothing that you kind of teed me up and said, go say. What I would tell your audience is that the first step is you've got to ask yourself, where do I need to grow? And then you've got to ask yourself, how do I need to go help my team grow? Who are the leaders that if I can invest in them, if I can spend some extra time on them, that investment will pay off if that person is willing to grow and willing to receive it. So my advice would be that you begin kind of saying, where do I need to go back to school and how can I help others kind of go back to school, whether it's in the business or, by the way, in their personal life, because that investment pays off too. When you help people, with their life, when you add value to their life, that's a wonderful way to then be able to go to them and say, hey, I've got something I'd like to talk to you about. Could I have a few minutes to just share it with you? Well, man, that guy's blessed my life. That girl's been such a blessing, such a friend. Sure. And that's the thing that I think is pretty smart for all of us, is if we can find a way to meet a need, we'll always be needed. And I think so often we're looking too much at how we can get something rather than how we can bless and build and edify and equip. And when we do that, it's amazing what we can then do. So think about yourself and think about those on your team and who, with just a little bit more effort on your part, could really become exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing words of wisdom for sure. I mean, what do you see as, we've kind of talked about some of the stumbling blocks that I've seen. What do you think in dealing, when dealt with literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that have led to millions of people, and there's very common stumbling blocks, with people typically as they're learning to develop leadership and they're leading themselves, leading others. What are some of those stumbling blocks that you've experienced and witnessed?
Well, the one that I've recently become very aware of, by the way, interesting to point out that major CEOs who had some kind of sort of leadership train wreck in their life, I think the figure is somewhere around 92% of those CEOs, that failure happened because of some issue in their character. And
Wow.
we're divided up into three pieces. There's our personal style. That's sort of the face that we show the world, and it's our kind of way. It's John has this style that's very fun and very upbeat, and he likes to take the complicated and make it simple, and he's great with words, and that's his personal style. But then there is a person's competency, what they're good at, what they're capable of, what their skills are, and we all have a different matrix there. But then there's the third part, and that's our character. And Tim Elmore, the great author and friend of ours, wrote a book called Habitudes, and in that book, Habitudes, he uses images that teach lessons. And one image, the image for character, is an iceberg. And of course, we know that metaphor well, that the part that is above the surface is what everyone sees. And that might be where the first two aspects, our style and our competency, those exist there. But it's the character that is most of the thing, most of the iceberg. And so I think the first kind of area is that people don't get really honest and really open about what's going on deep inside. And then all of a sudden there's a train wreck that no one saw coming. There's a mess. Wow, I didn't know that was true. And all of a sudden this couple that looks like the ideal couple gets a divorce, and all of a sudden there's some big scandal, and there's been an affair, or there's been a financial failure, or there's been, a big lie that got exposed or something. And all of that is because of the stuff we don't work on, because we work on what everyone sees. The front yard looks really good, and we make sure the paint looks nice and the shrubs are trimmed, but the backyard could be an absolute train wreck. So I just want to encourage you, though, to think about the fact that whatever you're doing in your life, your character is really going to eventually
catch up to.
It's going to catch up. It's going to own it. It's going to take over. So what I've done is I'm creating a personal board of directors, and I've asked those in my team to be able to approach me if they see things that they're concerned about, if they see actions or attitudes. I've empowered them. In fact, I've actually created on my schedule where I meet with them periodically to just ask them, anything about me that concerns you, anything that you see me doing. And you know what? This helps them get there too. This helps them understand, because again, what you do duplicates. And so my team it's amazing the way our team has grown in honesty about our struggles. Obviously none of us wants to put every single thought, every action and whatever, all of our past out there for the world to see. But I think that I'd rather have a few wonderful people be able to help me than for all the world to know and not care because of what I've done wrong. So I think the first area is a character area. I think the second area is just an area where we get complacent. The story, and I know not everyone in the audience may be a person of faith, but everyone knows the story about David and Goliath. Well, there's another story about David later where he's now been this very successful king. Everyone loves him. He's, one of the great men on earth. And then one night has a moment with a woman in the city there. And before you know it, there's a whole scandal and an affair and all this. An unwanted pregnancy, and he covers it up, and all this.
Has the husband killed?
Has the husband killed? By the way, the husband was one of his special
loyal guys,
guy called the Mighty Men, and sure enough, all of this happened because one night he decided, and it says there in the story, it says that instead of going out to fight with his men, as is the habit of kings, and he was the king, he chose rather to send Joab, and he stayed home instead. And that night, he walks out on his rooftop and sees this beautiful woman bathing. And all of his problems didn't begin with seeing that lovely lady. It began when he took his focus off of his role. He didn't do what he should do. And sure enough, he ended up in this mess. And I think for many people, especially people who are in a business focused on freedom, focused on wealth, focused on success, there can be a moment when a little bit of that comes your way. And before you know it, you've lost focus, you've lost your mojo, you're distracted by other things, and then something comes into your life you're not ready for, and before you know it, it's become a mess.
Wow.
And I just would challenge those that are tuning into this to ask themselves, where is my focus on this? How consistent am I being? Because eventually you're going to get the fruit of that inconsistency and that lack of focus. And that is not some good fruit to have. So I think that's another area. I think that, and granted, we all want to celebrate, we all want to stop and smell the roses, and there's nothing wrong with pursuing freedom. But again, we have to understand that we're not talking about enjoying your success. We're talking about being distracted by it. And those are two very different things. Yeah, you need to enjoy it. That's part of why you're doing it. But be mindful of the fact that a momentary indulgence can destroy you. And I've seen that happen a lot. So staying the course, I think for many people too, that they start kind of cutting corners. They start, I probably don't need to spend time, with my team. I probably don't need to invest in those leaders. So-and-so will do it. I can send Joab and they'll do it. I don't need to work quite as hard. I don't need to learn and take the personal growth time I've been taking. And they stop doing the core things that are most important for their success. And unfortunately, in the world that you guys are in, Tony, that duplicates right on down the line. So be very, very mindful of getting distracted and stopping doing the basic things that lead to your success. And I'll share this with you that I think is an important message, and then feel free to go wherever you'd like, Tony. But John Maxwell talks about the power of five. Mm-hmm. And the power of five lesson is awesome. Maybe your audience has heard it, Tony, but it's just this simple. If there's a tree in the front yard and I go out every day and I take a good sharp axe and I take 5 good swings, eventually that tree's coming down. Yep. But if one day I take 2 and one day I take 8 and the next day I take 1 and then the next day I skip and then I come back and take 4 and then, well, it's going to take forever and the tree isn't coming down. If I also go out and I hit this tree for 5, and then the next day I go hit that tree, and then I hit the tree down the street. Well, then I'm going to end up with a bunch of scarred up trees. The key thing for all of us is find the tree, get a sharp axe, and take 5 good swings every day. And I think in your business, Tony, that people could probably sit down in a great upline counseling session and everyone figure out what are the 5 swings I'm going to take every day. And buddy, I'm going to go out and I'm going to swing hard and I'm going to make that axe sharp and I'm going to swing 5 good times every day. Whatever that tree is, it could be a certain pin level in the business. It could be a certain experience that you want to have for your family. It could be a certain level of income. I don't know what it is, but whatever that tree is, 5 good swings every day, that tree's coming down. Why? Because success doesn't happen in a day, but it does happen daily. Yeah. And as long as you can get in charge and in control of the 24 hours that you've been given a day, and you take 5 good swings, I don't care what it is, eventually you're going to know how to do it every day. Figure that out. That's a huge, huge aspect of your success.
Well, and you could apply it. I mean, it certainly applies to our business, but it really applies to anything, right? I mean, so many people, I love what John talks about. I talk about this all the time, where he talks about the order, your priority list, your agenda list on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And what most people do is they put on the top of their agenda list, I got to mow the lawn. I got to take the kids, whatever. I got to go grocery shopping. I got to do the laundry, and yeah, you technically need to do that, but that's not really moving your life forward.
Yeah.
As opposed to reading, staying focused on your business, doing those top 3-4 things that you need to do on
Yeah.
that list that move your life forward, move your business forward, get you closer to your goals. And it's so funny how you could spend an entire lifetime. When I read that from John, I forget which book it's in. It might be in a few different books, but when I read that, I said, holy smokes, that's such a simple little thing. But literally people spend their entire lives being busy, but not actually being productive.
Yeah.
And I mean, that analogy, the power of five is obviously relates right to that.
No question, Tony. Yeah, you're talking about the Pareto Principle.
Yeah.
And that is the idea that if you make sure you achieve 20% of your top what's most important of your day, if you'll do the 20%, that'll give you 80% of your success. And it doesn't make sense, but it works.
Yeah.
The top 20% of a business, they make 80% of the money. The top 20% of leaders in like a church, they are the ones who do most of the work. It's just a truth about life that remains somewhat largely unproven, but I think is absolutely true. And for most people, they spend their time focused on the bottom 80% instead of the top 20%. But if they'll emphasize the top 20%, well, that's going to make for a very successful day. And I think for most people, they haven't even figured out what their top 20% is. They're just worried about the squeaky wheels in their life rather than leading their life. They're being led by their life, being led by what screams for them rather than controlling it and making sure that you're the one doing the screaming. You're in charge of you.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is wild. And the other thing that your organization talks about quite a bit, because people want to get to that level of success very, very quickly. And your organization talks about, look, leadership is not a 1 or 2 year thing. It's a 30+ year thing. It's a lifetime thing, and that's why I respect John so much, because I mean, he's in his 70s now, I believe.
73. Yeah.
And he is extremely active, extremely excited about life, and continually learning.
Yeah.
I mean, he's some of the stuff that we viewed during this coronavirus process, and where he's talking about new things he's learning. And it's funny because a lot of people will get to a certain level and they'll be like, almost like they kind of become fixed minded and they forget that they need to keep learning and growing.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel at points with myself, I'm going, wow, I feel like I know less today than I did 15 years ago. Yeah. I feel like, I'm like, man, I've been really studying this leadership thing, but and I know it's not the case, but it's funny. It's like it one door opens and you see there's like another 50, It's like, okay, I got to go through all these doors now to learn that. And every door you go into, it's like, so it's really cool. And I've fallen in love with that process, but a lot of people, again, resist that. And, you're never going to get to your goals if you hate the process of learning and developing, you're never going to get to where you want to get to, because I was I had destination disease for a while, where it was like, oh man, when I get to this point, then it's going to be great. And now I know that there is no point, and I just keep moving forward, and I'm very growth focused as opposed to destination focused now.
Boy, you've got it figured out, Tony, and I hope your team is listening to what you're saying, because it is so true. There is no such thing as I've arrived. There's no such thing as I've got that figured out. My youngest son was like, when he heard I was in a master's program, he's like, why?
Why are you doing that?
And I said, well, I feel like I need to do it. And he's mystified by that. A more voracious and humble and teachable learner than me. And that's John Maxwell. He's authored 100 and some books. He's sold 30 million.
Oh my gosh.
30 million books.
I mean,
do the math. He's not looking for work.
Yeah, no.
Holy and sorry. Yet, like if I was with him, we have a precious friend by the name of Tobin Kessels, and Tobin is, his dad founded it, and he's now the guy that runs Southeastern Freight Lines down in Columbia, South Carolina. Great man. And John had to speak there, and I went along with him that day. And we're like, John walks in and they have all of these signs on the wall about their business and about their values and about their vision and their mission, and they're strongly faith-based and all of that. But I mean, a very successful trucking company. And John is reading all these signs. He's taking pictures with his phone. And we're like, John, we've got to go speak, man. Technically, he's got to go speak. It wasn't us, but
Yeah.
you know, they're like waiting. They've got 100 people in there waiting for you. And he's like, yeah, I'll be right there. And then he calls his CEO, Mark Cole, over and he says, hey, Mark, see this point right here? Let's make a point to talk about this next week and see how we can implement this in our company. And oh man, I love this one. I'm going to put this one in the next book. I might write a book about that. He is just this kid in a candy store when it's a chance to learn.
Wow.
And he's 73, written 100 books and sold 30 million. But if anyone came to the John Maxwell Leadership Center where my office is, and we got to show you around, which by the way, you're welcome to come anytime.
Yeah, no,
especially you and Francis, Tony.
Yeah.
But in there is a book that in 1974, John Maxwell was sold by this guy who said, John, you need to become a learner of success and leadership. And so we've still got that very book that John bought. He gave up his lunches. He gave up paying for lunch for like 6 months to buy it. That's how he funded it.
Wow.
And bought that personal leadership. It was sold to him by a guy named Kurt Kampmeyer. And now here we are 7 million leaders later because John sat down with that guy, gave up his lunches for 6 months, and bought that personal growth training so that he could grow and become a leader. And now here he is 73 and still can't get in the room to speak because he's so passionate about learning what's out in the other room. So I just want to tell everyone that whatever you can do, if you can just keep growing and learning with people like Tony and Francis and the Britt family and that organization, I mean, life is going to be better. I don't know if that necessarily translates to a pin level, but I know that your life is going to be better and you will never regret it. You'll see it in your kids, and you'll see it in your health, and you'll see it in your income, and you'll see it in your friends and your business. And you're like, I made that commitment to keep growing, keep finding in how you learn, not just by books and not just by conferences or things you listen to, podcasts, but find new ways to grow and to learn, and it will pay you, especially if you're learning it is a part of what you're doing in your business. If you're learning to succeed at that business, you will be so glad you did.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing because, you know, when you really think about, I didn't know that story at all about John Maxwell and, you know, investing in personal development, you know, thank God of our, you know, our system is very inexpensive in comparison to a lot of things that are out there, you know, and we do that by design because we help them build a business, and that's obviously then where we would profit. And so we try to educate people as inexpensively as possible, give them the most value and whatnot. But it's funny, like even with our system, you know, whether it's a meeting for 10 or 15 bucks or 20 bucks, or, you know, a conference for a couple $100, a lot of people sometimes will kind of waffle and be like, oh man, a couple $100, but wait a second.
Yeah.
You spend 20 bucks a day at Chipotle. You know, you spend 20 bucks a day at Starbucks drinking coffee. Yeah. You know, like if you would just stop that, you know, Starbucks isn't benefiting your life other than giving you some short-term pleasure and maybe a little bit of caffeine, you know, but it's not doing anything to make your life better for your family. Yeah. But it's amazing how spending money on that's no big deal, but spending 15, 20 bucks on a conference or a leadership type thing where people, it's off balance with how they look at things.
Yeah. Let's look at it in another way. What would happen if you didn't spend it? Here's the thing. I know the cost for what it will be if you go to a conference or if you buy a training program. What we don't know is the cost if you don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the one thing that we don't know. And frankly, it's a little bit of, as it pertains to your career, it's a risk not worth making.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, the people who succeed, the people who choose to quit are so close to success when they make that choice. And so what I would say to you is, yeah, I know the value or the cost that it will be for you to participate in a conference or attend an event or tune in to a training or whatever. But what we don't know is the cost if you don't. Yeah. And you'll never lose money on those kinds of expenses. You know, I'm spending thousands of dollars for this master's program. I'm telling you right now, it's been worth every dime. The problem with us is we're just not used to spending money on things like that. We're used to spending money on coffee and movies and Netflix and stuff that adds nothing to our life. Wouldn't it be great if it was just a normal average? Yeah, that's what we spend money on around here. That's our problem. We need to develop financial habits that are based on the right things, not the wrong things, or at the very least, not useless things.
Yep, 100%. And today, there's more useless spending than ever before. You know, like I love what, Dave Ramsey talks about, and a lot of people that do any sort of financial coaching, spending the cash, you feel it so much more as opposed to swiping a credit card.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, well, the banks are bad and this is bad. And it's like, no, they're a business and you're just not picking up on how your mind works in regards to swiping a credit card versus spending cash. And they make everything so easy to spend money on things that really don't move our life forward. I love what you said. Like the norm should be putting money into things that are personally self-development based, stuff like that, because it's the same deal. Like when people take loans out for college, they'll take out loans for 40, 50, 60 grand, and it's like no problem. And then, oh yeah, I'll pay it back later. But then if you have to pay for something up front and it's $200-300, $500, $1,000, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so much money.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, John does it this way too. John says, think about this. The only appreciable asset, every other asset we have depreciates. Tony, you're there in a beautiful home. I've got a beautiful home, but everything around me, including me physically, my clothes, everything I've got, my stuff, this house, all of it is depreciating. The only appreciating thing, the only appreciable asset I have is me. Yeah. And the people that I lead. Yeah. People are the only thing that appreciates. They're the only thing that grows in value. Now, someone had said wine does that too, but I should stop messing with my illustration. But wine isn't necessarily an asset. It might be sort of a necessary thing sometimes, but it's not. The only appreciable asset that I have is me and the people I lead. Yeah. And so money spent to grow them is a very good use of money because it takes them from just being static to being appreciating. And if I invest in me, I am appreciating. And if I am appreciating, I'm worth more. Yep. And if I'm worth more, I'm going to have more. Yep. And that's really the way to look at it. How can you make you and those you lead more valuable? If you do, you're going to have more money. Yep. It's just the way it is. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all of this is amazing. And, I love how this conversation has just flowed. And, in wrapping up, is there anything that you would say to your listeners? I mean, you gave us just a ton of amazing content for anybody that follows us with, Customize Your Life. And I can't thank you enough, but is there anything in any closing thoughts? I mean, this has been great. Well, Tony, one thing I would say, we've talked about personal growth, and man, it's pretty easy to hear stuff like this and to go, that was really good. And, what do you want to watch on Netflix tonight? And not take any action. And so the first thing I would encourage people who are listening to this is to decide, okay, what are the steps I want to take? And by the way, this is something to do with everything that you take in. If you do not sit down and put something in your agenda based on hearing a talk, I wonder if that's even been worth your time. Would you have been better to do a physical workout, or would you have been better to do something? If there's not something that as a result comes into your agenda, I wonder about that. So my first thought would be, okay, after listening to this, I'm going to go do these three things, or I'm going to sit down and talk with my upline or with my downline or with my family or whatever about this. But what is the very tangible action you want to take? I would also say, what is the thing you're going to order that's going to grow you? What is it? Maybe it's something from you guys' store in your business. Maybe it's something that you guys have in your organization that's available for them. Again, you and I have not talked about these things. You didn't tell me to mention this, but I would say that, look, it's great to grow, but it's targeted growth is far better. So don't just say, well, yeah, I learned about, we'll pick a subject, archery today. Well, cool. But how does that help you build yourself and your business and your team? Maybe there's some roundabout way it does. I don't know, but go find some way to grow in a targeted, specific manner in the direction of your dreams. Find something now. And so there's an action, there's a personal growth step. Also, the last thing I think I would say is, find a way to serve your team now. What can you do to add value to their life? What can you do to bless them? So I get up every day and I go through my team and I think about who can I pour into? How can I bless them? What can I do for them? What do they need? What's their, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about bearing one another's burdens. What is the burden they're carrying right now that I can help them carry? It is a great exercise to ask yourself, kind of list them, think about them. If you're a person of faith, maybe you want to pray for them. Maybe you just want to send them a message or a note. Maybe you just want to say, hey, I heard this great quote, and you send them that quote by James Allen that I quoted earlier. Maybe there is some way. It's amazing how a text message can just be so empowering and uplifting. So find a way to bless, encourage, inspire, motivate, lift up, pray for, whatever it might be. People that we've got in our lives are the only thing that's getting better, and it's appreciating. And so think about them and pour into them, and don't just deal with the squeaky wheel in your organization. Deal with maybe the one that isn't squeaking at all, that you could make them, even better. And, just add value to folks. I'm always remember that great Albert Schweitzer quote where he said that only those among you who have sought and found out how to serve will truly be happy. And so I just feel like God made us interdependent. He made us so none of us can ever succeed without others around us. And so be that person in someone's life. Go and bless them and serve them. And it's amazing how much better you'll feel. Because, I think we get in tough times, we sort of fall down into what I call a mirrored hole. We're in this hole and all we can see is us. And all we can see is our world and maybe our imperfections and our mess and we get very me oriented and me driven. And I just want to encourage you to look up out of that mirrored hole of this crisis and think about who you can bless and serve. And man, you'll just be so much happier. It's the only way to be happy, in fact.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And can't thank you enough. I can't wait to, just continue to get to know you more and come on down to your center. And, we're really excited about this. I think this is, a lot of people are going to walk away with tremendous value listening to this. And just thank you again, truly.
Tony, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to spending time with you and Francis. In fact, Francis and I talked about maybe you guys coming on a trip with John and us. And
we 1000% want to do that.
We got to do that.
We're going to do that 100% because that's just, I think, an amazing experience that, very worth it.
Keep you posted on that. And for those of you that are on this great team, well, congratulations on being with some of the finest people on earth and some of the best people at what you do. You couldn't be a more blessed person. Believe that today because it's an absolute fact. Whatever's holding you back, it's not where you are. You're with the best people you could be with. So work hard, go for those dreams. It's worth every effort you make, and you'll be glad you did it. It's just been an honor for me to be with you. And if there's any way our team can serve you, Tony and Francis, or anyone on your team, upline or down, you let us know. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon and looking forward to doing more stuff with you for sure.
My pleasure, Tony. God bless.
Yeah, have a great day, RD.
All right.